He's on mute. He's here, but he's on mute.
Yeah.
He's here. Yeah.
Anthony, I'm here as well. As I just got a glass of water.
Okay.
Okay. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News, Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on March 18th, 2021, and revised April 12th, 2021. Please join me in this flag salute. I got my flag, so we can get it in front of the camera. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. I think this is the biggest turnout we've had for a council meeting in quite some time, so it's great to have you here with us. As a lot of you may know, our efforts to revitalize our downtown have been in process, I think, for almost 4 years now. And I have to give credit to my predecessor, Mayor Suey, for appointing the first Downtown Revitalization Committee. And that group started this process and has committed countless volunteer hours to get us to this point tonight. And I want to thank them. The original members were Bonnie Stone Sellers, Sam Mataluna, Michael Sullivan, Paul Sedlak, Jeff Horowitz, and Pat Bosworth. Since that time, we've added a few newer members, which I'd also like to thank: Tim Manning, Hal Simoff, David Wagner, Peter Sarignano, and Al Rivero. Also, Jeff Price from the Borough, and council members Tom O'Day and John Donahue have all been involved in this process. It started with an extensive community survey where we had over 1,100 responses. Then there was a very well-attended public forum in the high school PAC to go over the results and the process. Interestingly, 98% of the respondents said that downtown revitalization was important to them. Overall, the respondents wanted to keep our small town character, but they wanted more amenities. They wanted more restaurants, open spaces, places to meet, activities, concerts, things like that. And you can read the presentation and the survey results. They're posted on the Borough website. So it was that committee's recommendation that the Borough revitalization efforts be directed towards Quimby Lane and the former Audi dealership. I think at this point, I will introduce our representative from Topology, which I saw him here, is Chris Colley, who their efforts, he and Phil Abramson, have been invaluable throughout this process, and he can give us kind of how we got to this point, what was involved getting us to today. I saw you. Where are you, Chris?
I'm here, Mayor.
Ah, good.
Thank you for the introduction, and thanks for letting us come this evening, and it's great to see such a good turnout. So just to sort of pick up where the mayor left off timeline-wise, after that survey was conducted in 2018, our firm was retained, and we've been working with the borough ever since then, both on Quimby Lane and on 65 Morristown Road. And I won't go into like the exact dates of adoptions of previous things that came before me, because I know we have a pretty tight agenda this evening. But I will say that in the summer of 2019, the borough put out a sort of initial RFP to gauge developer interest and to get some design feedback for the Quimby Lane area. Subsequent to that, Topology conducted 2 area in need of redevelopment studies, one for 65 Morristown Road and one for Quimby Lane area. Those were completed in late 2019. We spent the first half of 2020, the first half plus a little more, working on redevelopment plans for both 65 Morristown Road and the Quimby Lane redevelopment area, which were adopted by the council in the fall. The 65 Morristown Road one first, and then Quimby Lane shortly thereafter. And then subsequent to the adoption of those redevelopment plans, we worked with the borough and with the committee and the council to prepare requests for proposals for both sites, 65 Morristown Road and Quimby Lane. Those were issued late last year, November, December of last year, and the responses to those were due back earlier this year. And that sort of takes us up to the present day. And I'm going to pass it back to you, Mayor, to carry on from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So what we've done tonight is we've invited the developers. We had one response to the former Audi dealership RFP and two for Quimby Village. So we've invited those developers here so that the council and our residents can all learn more about who these developers are. We're not making any decisions tonight or getting into design details. What we ask the developers to provide to us tonight is an overview of their project team, a summary of relevant project experience, an overview of their vision for the area, and an outline of their proposed implementation approach. And we expect them to do that in 15 minutes. So, but before they do, I'd also like to introduce our redevelopment attorney, Joe DeMarco, who is a Bernardsville resident and a former Bernardsville councilman, to kind of tell everyone where we go after tonight. So, Joe.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've been doing redevelopment pretty significantly for the past, 5-10 years, but it's always a pleasure when you get to do it in your own backyard, right? So I appreciate that gift and honor that you gave me. So what's occurred is the council approved a redevelopment plan, which is essentially the envelope. The goal now is to select someone to fill that envelope in and build. And the process going forward is all good, right? We're going to hear from them tonight. There will probably be some additional follow-up questions by council members that, through your office or through the business administrator will get relayed to the developer. They'll answer those, and hopefully sooner rather than later, the council will be in a position and comfortable enough that they've done enough due diligence that they can select a developer, right? With the 65 Morristown Audi site, might be easier because there's only one to select from, right? So, we're going to still kick the tires and do the due diligence. But they would be named as the official redeveloper of the property. That would trigger their responsibility to build within that plan or seek minor amendments to it. And we would then negotiate with the BA, myself, and whatever other professionals, maybe the CFO, a redevelopers agreement, possibly a financial agreement to help support and get the project across the road. They would then have to reappear in front of the planning board with a plan that hopefully is variance-free, which means that it complies with the vision that the council worked so hard on and all the volunteers and the planning board worked so hard on. And then they get to the really good fun part, which is, everyone gets a shovel and a hard hat and you get to go to a groundbreaking and they pull construction permits and away you go. So it's taken a long time to get here, but I think all the hard stuff has been done. The really good stuff lies ahead for the borough and for the developers. It's a good process that we've undertaken, and I'm here to help and assist in any way I can.
Thank you, Joe. And I believe our first presenter then will be for the former Audi dealership. So, there's a lot of boxes here, so I'm not sure. Oh, David, is that you?
Yes, Mayor. And if I could share, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Hello to the council people, Mr. Marco, Chris, good evening, and to all my fellow residents of Bernardsville. This is an exciting night for us. Would it be possible, Mayor, for me to share a presentation tonight? Is that possible to do on Zoom?
Yes, right, Anthony?
Yeah, yes, you're able to share it, yes.
All right, great. Let's see if I can do this. All right, I think am I sharing, Mayor?
Yep, looks good.
We're seeing the roof. It might be a little, yeah, okay. Just have to change the view.
It should be.
Yep,
There
got
we
it.
go. So about 4 years ago, Adam Calkin came to me and started talking to me about this site, the Audi dealership, and I saw a rundown old car dealership. And I still see a rundown old car dealership, but I am not an architect who transforms former industrial spaces into really interesting and special pieces of architecture and community. When I met Adam Calkin and we first became friends, he said, would you be okay with coming to my house? Netflix is shooting a show on the most interesting architectural homes, and I need someone who's never been to my house before to react to it. So that was kind of how I first met the leading team member on this, who is Adam Calkin, who is going to speak a lot, where I'm going to introduce to kind of give a presentation kind of on what his vision is tonight. But he's a local resident. He's a resident here in Bernardsville, and his focus really is on adaptive reuse. And so taking a site like the Audi dealership is really something that it's a small project, but it can be a passion project of his. And I will give a brief overview of the team as we move forward. But Adam did this is a brief plan of kind of what the vision is for the site itself. I know Adam is on the line. Adam, if you can unmute yourself, do you want to give a little little discussion on what your vision is for the site? And I want to know, am I still sharing my screen? Something went haywire here. There we go.
Yeah.
I did see Mr. Calkin, didn't I?
Yeah, can you hear me, man?
There you are.
How you doing?
Good, thank you, Adam.
Yeah, I do a lot of adaptive reuse and sort of sustainable developments, and I'm building stuff all over the world. We really like to reuse building materials, and the old Audi dealership is so great because it's such an evocative piece of architecture that was, that played a role in our town for a while, and is sort of part of old Bernardsville, and has not been modernized really at all. That's why I like it, because it's kind of still in its pristine, sort of state a la 50 years ago. So I just wanted to, I've been wanting to do this project for a long time. And we don't have a place in the town for people to get together and to enjoy each other's company. We also don't really have a place which is providing sort of great food. And so for me, this is a great opportunity to do that. My wife is a chef, and she cooked in Paris when we lived in Paris for a few years. And it's sort of a shared dream of ours to make a place with like amazing world-class casual food, and a place also where everyone can get together and hang out and meet. And that's something that's really especially important in in this time of COVID and whatever. Hopefully we'll all come out of this and be able to really hug each other again. So the basic idea is I just want to use the building more or less as it is, the footprint, because I think it's kind of, it's right up to it's super visible, and the front, I don't know if anyone ever bought a car there. My dad bought one of his Audis there a long time ago. And I love that the front is basically the showroom, and then the back is all these kind of garagey spaces. So to me, it naturally breaks into kind of a front of the house thing and a back of the house thing. So in the front of the house, we're going to get a couple of fantastic food vendors that we're already in deep discussions with. I'm not really ready to name them, but healthy, super healthy sort of food with a focus on sustainability and kind of more of a global and sort of planet consciousness, almost if you will, some like the way that Patagonia approaches, their clothes. So it's kind of it's an approach like that. It's a very sort of global wellness, personal wellness, planet wellness kind of approach. So we wanted to get those kind of vendors in the front. It's not actually that much space. It's only like 5,000 or 6,000 feet on the bottom. And then I wanted to do a big open kitchen here in the back. I don't know, David, can you move your cursor to the sort of the back of the, that area? I want to do a big open kitchen, something like in, how at 90 acres, there's kind of a big open kitchen in the back. I really like that. So I want to do a big open kitchen that people can come in and sit in and enjoy some great food and enjoy the ambiance back there. And then I want to do a world-class coffee shop in the other side of the back, which is also, still heavily industrial. So I'd like to preserve that character back there, kind of, obviously freshen up the whole building and bring a whole kind of sustainable, a funky, sustainable ethos to it. But that's basically the idea. It's to create a place for the town, for the people, for families, where you can bring your kids, where you can meet somebody, you can get some great food, you could bring some food home. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows what it's like to try to, with our busy lives, try to get home and make dinner, and it's just too much. So it'd be great if we could really give people a boost in that department, help them eat healthy from home. They can also eat here, but this is not a restaurant with service and everything like that. It's a place to kind of hang out and talk about food, share things. And like, for instance, in the cafe, I think it'd be great if the cafe also had a music venue, where we could bring in some, small, but very small sort of coffee house kind of thing, bring in some people, some music people, and that we could open these glass garage doors in the back to these little garden areas. So it's kind of an indoor-outdoor space. The back faces onto the railroad, which I think is sort of fantastic. And the front faces out onto the highway to 202. And so it's the building really has an urban character, which I would like to preserve. And an urban and an industrial character. So I think there's a lot of room to do something beautiful for the community here, for our health, for wellness, for our togetherness. And that's kind of the vision I have. This is really, as I've said, this is a passion project for me. The economics clearly are secondary. And I wanted to find a couple of great partners, which I found in Dave and Peter, both of whom have a lot of relevant experience. And just to do something that would leave a lasting mark on the community and make Bernardsville, which to me I've lived here since I was a kid, and there's so much potential here, untapped potential. And I feel like this could become a hub and kind of put us on the map, in terms of doing things that are interesting socially and from a food point of view. And I think Bernardsville deserves it. And I don't know, somehow it's eluded us a little bit. But I mean, we have a very sophisticated population and that knows a lot about food, well-traveled, but there's no place for us to go and hang out and be together. And also, also with kids, I've got a couple of little kids, and, a place where you can really bring the whole family and you don't need to stuff the kids in the car and rush out, and, it's a place where you can kind of linger. You can also see that there's a bike area here. I think it'd be nice to bring in some of those people that bike through the area every weekend. I'd like to do maybe a solar roof, to bring some of that awareness, of some of the other things. I'd also like to do a growing roof, you know, where we were growing maybe some of the herbs that we use in some of the food here. So I'm trying to create kind of something that is, well, here's a piece. Yeah, so you can see, you know, I'm kind of well known for doing stuff with shipping containers. I don't know if anybody knows my work around this. Here's a piece I did for Italy coffee at the Venice Biennale a couple of years ago.
So I can brag about Adam a little bit.
Yeah, let Dave brag. He'll brag me better than I will. But anyway, that's to me, that's the gist. I want to do something, you know, really for the community that and a place where I can hang out and yeah, everybody can come and it's we can all, you know, kind of get to know each other. And I don't know, does anything like that exist? I don't even know of any town. Maybe in New York there's some places like that, but they tend to be kind of exclusive. I'd love to have a place that's kind of celebrates our town and is really sort of inclusive and you know, a little, you know, but casual, but with serious intent in the food and sort of sustainability focus.
So that's terrific, Adam, and that you know, I really thought it'd be great for you guys to hear how passionate Adam is about this project, and then I could show you just a couple examples of his work. As you know, as he just mentioned, he's well known for working with shipping containers and other reuse or industrial versions. This is a Illy coffee, you know, pop-up coffee container shop, and I think we envision having a container, you know, pop up inside of.
Yeah, I'd like to have a piece like this in the cafe. Yeah.
Cafe. So there's some really neat opportunities here. This is another example. I also wanted to show you an example, and there's going to be significant time to talk about Advance in the next presentation. But you know, as we'll talk about soon, Advance is so excited about Bernardsville and working together. We're all really coming together on this project as well. This is an example of an interior industrial project, residential project that Advance Realty has done. So, you know, we're all local Bernardsville residents, you know, trying to do, you know, something cool for our town. So, you know, Adam is the industrial zombie. You'll be hearing from Peter later, Coco Ziella, who's Advance Realty. And I needed a name, so we are Wolf Ventures, and that is myself and my brother, John. We comprise Wolf Ventures. So we are excited about the opportunity. Adam has been speaking to me nonstop about this for about 4.5 years. So I think you got to hear some of his passion about it tonight. And we look forward to continuing to discuss the project with the town and with, you know, the borough. There, you know, there's certainly some challenges associated with the site, but I think we can all we can make it into something special.
Yeah.
So
All right, wonderful. Thank you, David and Adam. And it's great to hear your passion, and it's great that, you know, local people are interested in working in the town. I think that's terrific. So then our next presentation will be Melillo Enterprises. I believe I saw Anthony here. Anthony, yes, there you are.
Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. And actually, could I get permission to show the presentation?
Oh, yes, you can. Yeah. You can go ahead and do it. You're good.
Actually, before I start, do I need to be sworn in?
No.
No, it's not a meet. It's not that kind of meeting, Anthony. We're gonna remember what you said, but we're not gonna hold it against you.
All right, I'll be careful.
All right.
Okay, so I'd like to begin, I guess, just going through the team. So Melillo Equities is the RFP respondent. To give a little about who we are a real estate private equity firm. We are hyper-focused with the geographical footprint of Peapack, Gladstone, Far Hills, and Burnsville. My name is Anthony Melillo. As a managing partner of Melillo Equities, we had founded ourselves in 2012 as a spinoff of the real estate company that my family had created about 3 or 4 decades ago. But we created a new spin, and that spin is to redefine the suburban landscape. Over the past 8 to 9 years, we have grown our asset base to just over $100 million, and that's spread over 34 properties. Currently, we are assisting 2 of the 3 towns that we participate in with addressing their affordable housing mandate, and hopefully Bernardsville will be the third. In terms of our competitive advantage, we see ourselves as a unique player for the fact that from our perspective, we are the largest holder of boutique retail and office and residential apartment in the immediate area within those 3 towns, comprising over 300,000 square feet. And more specifically, that average sizing is between 800 and 1,500 square feet, which allows us uniquely to use that underlying data to support our underwriting. Secondly, from a long-term ownership perspective, we do what we can to align with all stakeholders, and we do that to avoid biased decision-making on behalf of the developer. And lastly, in terms of community engagement, we look to partner with local leaders, with mayor and council in developing community solutions and in all matters avoiding litigious outcomes. And then specifically about this particular project and why it hits close to home, our family, we consider Bernardsville as our hometown for over 50 years. My grandparents moved here back then with my parents and obviously still are here. Myself, I have great memories playing Little League at Kiwanis Field, playing football, bullpups and bulldogs on the polo grounds. Actually coached after college the bullpup program for 2 seasons. It's actually a little surreal to see the kids you coach graduating college. With that in mind, we have a vested interest to make sure that no matter who's picked, that this redevelopment goes as planned. Moving on. So in terms of comparable projects, we thought it would be best to show projects that were awarded, but specific as it relates to affordable housing, since that is just a completely different breed. To the right of the screen, to the left of the screen, you'll see Lackawanna Village, which is our Peapack Gladstone settlement. This project, if you listen to the incremental characteristics, you'll realize that it's very similar to Quimby. It's 107,000 square feet, which is contemplated, which is mixed use project, 40,000 square feet of retail office and 40 apartments of a variety of 3-story structures with structured parking below. Portion of the property falls within the floodplain. If you could actually see my mouse here at this point. So the design of the project had this contemplated. Creation of public amenities within, which is the plaza, and also a river walk that heads to Lackawanna, or that heads to Liberty Park, and utilization of the grade differential to minimize the project scale, showing that if this was grade 0 within the, let's say the plaza center, that -12 was behind, that allowed us to hide a lot of the parking. To the right side of the screen, we have Far Hills Fair Share settlement, which included a 134 unit age-restricted townhome development, which we had partnered with a national builder on. And then secondly, Far Hills proper, which is a 22,000 square foot mixed-use project with 8,000.
Yeah, you throw it there.
Excuse me?
Somebody needs to mute themselves.
With 8,000 square feet of ground floor retail, 10 luxury apartments above. And this project specific, which, important in terms of its characteristics, you could see the picture below as a rendering, that it's commensurate with, we believe, the architecture of the town, that it's not just a box, but that it fits seamlessly into the fabric of the town. And more specifically too, it addresses the, what we feel is an auto-centric, auto-oriented community, And this is the first incremental step in doing that, something that we also believe Bernardsville should and will be addressing over the years and decades. Last part of the team, just like to introduce the rest of the team. Minimum Wasco is our designated architect. They're a full service architectural firm. They offer design, planning, interior designing, full gambit of uses, commercial, mixed use, and residential. They've won numerous industrial awards for excellence in architecture and planning. And I've provided a few projects which I would think are comparable to Bernardsville. Gladstone Design would be the civil engineer, a local firm. Used them on many projects for many years. Multidiscipline firm providing engineering, land surveying, landscape architecture, land planning. Again, comparable projects been provided. And then lastly, Bosenberg & Co., which I know the town is familiar with. I believe Brian Bosenberg sat on, I think, either the land use board or was a professional advisor to the land use board. But their particular firm, comprehensive landscape architecture, and have been recognized by New Jersey Chapter of American Society of Landscaping. And actually to the right, if this is familiar, this is their downtown improvement project, which I believe some of the improvements were incorporated into the design, but hopefully with this next iteration of Quimby Village that they could see their project to fruition. Okay, so jumping into project proposals. So for those that are not familiar with the project, if I could just spend a little time in orienting and explaining. So just first to orient you, we have Alcott Square. You could follow my mouse. We have Mill, we have Mine Brook Road, Claremont up top, and we have Quimby. And if you follow the dotted line, that's the RFP overlay that the council has contemplated. From our perspective, we see that this area, if you can see my mouse, the one that's not highlighted with a color, is what we would consider undevelopable in terms of the constraints from a DEP perspective, the floodway, floodplain. From our project perspective, we looked at the blue shaded area, which we look as the developable areas. And of that, we've bifurcated the assemblage into two. One is the Melillo assemblage, which is the dark blues, and the Target assemblage, which is effectively the last three remaining parcels. The parcel numbered 1, we currently hold title to. The parcel number 3, we hold a ground lease with the municipality that runs until 2025. The borough actually owns title to the parcel number 2. There's a single entity for parcel 4, and then various owners for parcel 5. But key to just keep in mind, especially as we run through this particular presentation, is you can see that with borough consent, you actually have critical mass to begin phasing and to begin projects. And this will be a key point later in the presentation. So as we begin, I thought it would be important for you to understand our thought process, not just what, but why. And when we were having those discussions, we came up with the question. The question is, what are we trying to answer here? What are we trying to solve? And we believe that the council was aiming to effectively transform this dormant downtown historic district into a vibrant village with walkable access to shopping, eateries, and a wide variety of public amenities. And our answer, though simple, is to do that is effectively to orient this project, this Quimby project, to Alcott Square, which would be right here. And we have 3 reasons why. The first is that to the west side, the western side of Quimby Lane, you have a heavily constrained area, which we see as the DEP floodway. So limited development here, if any. You also have grade differential issues along Mill Street, And you have here issues with the building orientation that Bernard's in is actually facing Minebrook, and the fact that it sits close to the sidewalk, and again, the fenestrations don't really line up for a very inviting road. It leaves a very small area for optimal retail frontage, which I'm showing right here in that highlighted green. Secondly, the borough desired to conceal the parking deck. I think it's understood that surface parking is not an option. So for the structured parking scenario, council thought it would be wise, rather than putting it up front on Alcott or Mill Street, to bury it below, to create almost a bank building to hide it. In doing that, the practical location would be to have it abutting Quimby Lane, which again further constrains this optimal retail frontage. Not to mention the parking deck curb cuts for means of egress. And then lastly, the rationale for, again, orienting this project to Alcott is really from a holistic perspective. We see that, it's really unfortunate how many vacancies you see along this road from Minebrook and into Alcott. And we feel that it would be best, rather than trying to create a new district in Bernardsville, that this Quimby Lane would help, or this Quimby Village would help bolster an already existing, downtown district that we feel is struggling. And this really could be a fantastic addition and a fantastic amenity if oriented correctly. So based on that, we created an overlay. Again, just to orient you, you have Alcott Square. If you can see my mouse here, you have Minebrook Road, you have Mill Street, you have Quimby Lane, Claremont up top. The orange, yellowish orangish boxes, those are the 2D massing, building masses. The red is your, I think it's the hardscape, but effectively your terraced courtyard areas. If you look here, one we have designated as the plaza, that the council contemplated having a plaza that would sit in the middle of the project. That would have multiple means of egress to, not only to this potential Minebrook Park, which I'll talk about. I just received a message that says, Frank DiNapoli is requesting remote control of your screen. Am I?
No, he must have hit something he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just decline. Sorry. So anyway, so Quimby Lane, that council contemplated having multiple means of egress in and out of that plaza. So we've centrally located it. It's also adjacent to this Mill Street promenade. So the idea of actually shutting down a portion of Mill Street that we feel is underutilized to create more public amenities. We have here contemplated private terrace for on-site residences. So just an added amenity, again, broadens the entire area, but specific to the private residences. We have multiple means of egress within the deck. And actually, if you could follow my cursor, this is where the deck abuts Quimby. You have Quimby access, means of egress to the lower portions here and here. With one up top on the second level. And then lastly, you have the Minebrook Park, which I'll go into further detail later in the project, but contemplates a public greenway from Mill Street to Minebrook, effectively over time purchasing and repurposing all of the properties in this area to be a passive park for the municipality. So moving on, we took a vantage point, if you're familiar with Bona Pizza. So if you're looking from that vantage point, this is what you would be staring at. You have Ristorante MV to your right. This is the current, let's say, Ride and Reflect location. And this building actually contemplates sitting on that exact footprint. So it just kind of gives you that size and scale. But just to run through this, we again contemplate closure of Mill Street to activate the ground floor retail. We provide inclusion of rooftops to generate that visual interest. We provide actual architectural design and materials in keeping with the historical aesthetic. The idea of reclaiming street side parking to widen the sidewalk, which again is something that the council had requested, or the committee had requested. The heights of the building, 3 stories, are in keeping with the design bulk standards. This is off of Mill, Olcott, and Minebrook. And then multi-means of egress into the proposed Quimby Plaza. So the next is a stacking plan to show the various elevations. And just to go through this, so the first floor is showing you an elevation off of Olcott Square. So the P1, P2 shows almost like a subterranean elevation, where P2 would still be level, ground level to Quimby Lane, which shows you the drastic change in elevation from Olcott Square back to Quimby Lane. But as you can see here, you have a deck that's banked into the grade. You have, as requested, commercial uses that circle the public areas on the first floor, and then you have residential units above. And to the left, you can see here total square footage of 152,000 rentable, broken into 32,000 of commercial and 120,000 of residential. And that's comprised of 142 residential units, with, in addition, a 77,000 square foot parking deck. So in terms of building elevations, and this is, sometimes this is hard to understand, but we'll go through one by one. So the east elevation, this is as if you were in the formal, say, King's Shopping Mall, and you're heading down 202. So you have Ride and Reflect, Fortis, the Karate Studio. This is the elevation that you would be looking at. So you're looking at 3-story structures, obviously larger retail, plate heights on the first floor and then shorter on the second. Mill Street, obviously, to your left, Minebrook to your right. But again, in keeping with kind of the design standards that were originally put in place. If you look at the northern elevation, this is from Ristorante MV. Again, keeping that 3-story elevation. If you look here, this faded parking use is actually to be considered below grade. So you can see now how the parking deck is actually built into the grade. And, you know, again, we do our best to minimize the building presence. So we're able to step that building back, create balcony, and again, from prior slides, that visual aesthetic. But again, in doing so, trying to keep that 3rd floor max height throughout. So the southern elevation is from the former Mastro's building. I guess you're all familiar with this, that climb all the way up to the Karate Studio. This is probably the most challenging elevation. Even how the buildings are laid out right now, they step, though they're not really joining in any one contiguous floor plate. The thought here is to recess the buildings, and in doing so, create a courtyard, which would allow you to enter at that point of grade where it's level to the terrace, but effectively be creating, elevated or synchronizing the elevations of each of the floor plates. And then last is the western elevation, which would be on the proposed Minebrook Park. This is, as you can see from Mill Street, you could see that loss in elevation I was talking about beforehand of the optimal retail frontage to the not optimal retail frontage. We had proposed here that it's in blue as a commercial use, that the post office would temporarily relocate and then permanently occupy this portion of the parking deck, which is the front portion off of Quimby. But as you can see here, you have your parking decks, 2 floors. You have means of egress, 2 of them, one off Quimby, another off a side street, and then the third that brings you to the second floor is off of Mill. Again, that's really just to maximize the efficiency of the parking lot build, the parking deck build. So in terms of design inspiration, when we started, we had a chance to kind of survey the town, and doing so, pull up some of the archives and get a better understanding of, not just where we want to be, but where we came from. And, in doing that, we see Bernardsville unequivocally as a proud, bold, powerful architectural history with multi-story masonry structures, that we're not hiding the design, but that it's bold. And in doing that, we would want to make sure that the designs within Quimby would emulate that. And we would do that through, historical parapet details. As you can see, this is the 59 Minebrook building. Tall, narrow windows to accentuate height. Brick and stone masonry, hard, durable materials, last the test of time. Classical storefront lighting features, and sidewalk shade awnings and so forth, to lighten the overall aesthetic in certain areas. From a residential perspective, it shows some of the residential product that we've provided. As you can see here, a lot of this is really tailored to young professionals, empty nesters, retirees. These people desire walkability. They desire community connection, access to public and private amenities. All the things that we're trying to build within this Quimby village. And in doing that, you could see from the aesthetic, the upscale atmosphere that's created here, sophisticated design, the premium materials, from hickory floors to Hinkley fixtures, Sub-Zero refrigerators, all, and again, supporting that baseline price point that we're trying to hit, but also the aesthetic and overall feel of the project. So this is our office and retail product. What we've seen over the past, and I would use a comparison, let's say that the King's shopping mall, I would almost call that a strip mall type scenario. So you have that as the past, that 1990s type variety compared to now what people are demanding. And you have we see it as a new entrepreneurial breed. They're looking for a unique feel. They want to customize their spaces. They're looking for that fresh, original vibe that's inviting. And you could see that just, in the pictures. It's something that you want to explore. You want to be a part of. And again, we do that by partnering with our tenant base. So with regards to public amenities, we're providing we're proposing three. The first is the proposed Minebrook Park. This is approximately 2.25 acres. It's a passive park where we would incorporate meandering pathways, brookside seating, canopy trees. Again, a passive park for minimal maintenance and upkeep, but a place where people can congregate and create that community that unfortunately right now there really is no one centralized place in the downtown to do that. We hope that we would be able to collaborate with the Environmental Commission, Green Team, and Open Space Advisory Committee in doing so. And we also would hope that the Downtown Bernardsville, which is a 501c3, would kind of lead the event management portion of the municipality's activities that are scheduled. The second proposed public amenity is Quimby Plaza, which we've lightly went over. This is about 1/4 acre. The interior courtyards are framed out by first floor boutiques and eateries, as contemplated, I believe, within the RFP. Some of the landscape design are canopy trees, ornamental grasses, perennials throughout. There would be, hardscape design elements, including, the pavers and seating, ample room for merchants to have outside space, cafes and so forth. And obviously to hold borough events in addition. And, as I mentioned before, and a key component to this Quimby Plaza is the orientation of the plaza to Olcott Square, again, in an attempt to create connectivity between the downtown districts. Lastly is the proposed Mill Street Promenade. This is another 1/4 acre parcel, sits just outside of the proposed Quimby Plaza. We consider this like a pedestrian gateway that would connect Olcott Square to Minebrook Park. We see this flanked by shops to the rear and the current restaurant, again, Restaurante MV. We see some of the design elements as interspersed canopy trees, planting beds, benches, low lighting to encourage AM, PM pedestrian activity. And really, it could, again, potentially be that starting point for traveling community events, the sounds around town, the art walks, and so forth. Okay, so implementation approach. So the first, and I've broken this into two pieces. The first that we'll discuss is the Quimby Village implementation approach, which is what you would see down here. This is the developable portion. We see this as a phased approach. This would allow us for gradual market absorption of new supply. We, at least from the data points that we have and what we know of these local markets, obviously too much demand too much supply would destroy pricing. So as a result, we would propose a phased approach, over time, so that the market can kind of slowly absorb that new supply. And also as a second play to that, how the RFP was structured, being that this particular RFP does not contemplate eminent domain, which we agree, really the only way to assemble is to do it and by assemble, I mean purchase, is to do this in a phased approach, which means that as you're building out the phases over time and you eventually get to the portions that are going to take longer to assemble, you're not left at any one point in time beholden to one property owner that's holding up the entire development. And then that's really a critical piece to this entire implementation approach. So just to run through this, phase one, which is right here, this construction would be staged off of Mill Street. Improvements would include effectively using the existing footprint of 11 Olcott, in addition to building out the proposed Mill Street Promenade. Phase two, which is what you would see right here, will be staged off of Quimby Lane. This would be to minimize the phase one improvements that were previously completed. These improvements would include the entire parking deck and the substantial portion of the residential units, in addition to a majority of the Quimby Plaza in the center. We've, again, mentioned the U.S. Post Office. They would temporarily relocate off-site, and we believe and hope that they would permanently occupy a space within the deck upon completion. And then phase three is this would be staged off of Minebrook and Olcott Square. This is a high traffic area. This would certainly be the most challenging. However, and in addition to the assemblage initiative, this would clearly be the most challenging of all. However, and again, most importantly, is being able to start the project and complete large portions of the project to have a sustainable critical mass, where the phase three portion of this would be given the time to complete that assemblage. That is the implementation approach that we feel would be most prudent. So with regards to the Minebrook assemblage, which again is the western side of Quimby, we recommend the incremental purchase of parcels. We would consider those parklets along the Minebrook, which eventually would create this public greenway between Minebrook Road and Mill Street. In doing that, we propose a two-pronged approach. And again, because eminent domain is not contemplated in this RFP, we believe this approach would be most prudent. The first is the purchase directly from landowners who are willing. And there may be a few, and we've listed out each of the landowners the blocks, lots, ownership. And again, this is just tax assessment, not to say that this is the fair market value. But there will be one or two right out of the gate that would be interested. Of those, we've identified three sources of funding. We have New Jersey State Green Acres, which have traditionally, if they do support the project, have traditionally backed up to 50% of the purchase price. We see the Somerset County Open Space as another source of about 20 to 50% of that purchase price, which we've allocated 25%. And then we see the municipalities open space fund contributing the remaining 25% as part of this initiative. The second of the two-pronged approach strategy is to secure a right of first refusal from all of the property owners that are listed here within the area. And again, what this would do is basically ensure the municipality that at some point in time, whether it's a year, 10 years, or in the distant future, that at some point in time, those parcels will be secured by the municipality and done in an amicable way, which we believe is most important. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Anthony. It took more than 15 minutes, but it was
Sorry about that.
no problem. No, but thank you. You really,
Mayor,
a lot.
if I may, I
Yes.
apologize. Yeah, so just, for clarification, because I know we have a lot of people listening to things. I mean, those are just some of the various financial scenarios or possibilities that, Anthony laid out. There are other ones and other combinations of things. So I don't want anyone to get, I mean, I appreciate the detail and the thought behind it, but I don't want anyone to get stuck on some of the numbers or a slide and think that, the borough has to contribute 25%. It might be 20, it could be 30, right? Things of that nature. I mean, those are just for illustrative purposes as to how land could be acquired. And I just didn't want anyone to hold the developer to that slide in future discussions.
Thank you for clarifying that, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
And again, this is all conceptual. So, we're not, nothing is decided at this point, but we put a lot of thought into that, Anthony.
Thank you.
Now we have Advanced Realty. I believe Peter Cocoziello is here. Did I say that right?
You did, Mayor. This is David Wolf again. If I could introduce Peter, if that's okay. Peter, are you on?
I'm on.
Oh, that's terrific. So, Mayor, I just wanted to give a little background. The redevelopment committee came to me, I guess, 4 years ago when we first got involved with the Audi dealership and asked, and for folks, my day job is in commercial real estate, working with some of the largest institutions in the country and local developers, real estate developers, to ask, was there a developer that I knew of or worked with that I would want to come into Bernardsville to help us engage in a transformative project for Bernardsville and redevelop our town. And I immediately thought of Peter and Advance. I've represented them for years and watched what they've done in Hoboken and in Harrison and other municipalities where they've done projects of hundreds of millions of dollars and some of the most beautiful and high-end properties in any of those markets. And I think the goal of the redevelopment committee was to try and recruit one of those type of developers to our community. Was a great goal, and I was excited, for Peter to have his local roots here, and you're going to hear about that. And it's now become a passion project of his. I think our presentation isn't quite as doesn't go into all the same details as Mr. Melillo's presentation, but I think you're going to get a great sense of the team that Peter's put together and some of the backgrounds for Advanced Realty. So we're really excited about it, and thank you to the redevelopment committee for all their work and to the council members. So Peter, I think, has the presentation.
Thanks, David. If you don't mind, let me share my screen.
You can share it, sure.
Is it sharing?
Not seeing it.
You see it?
No?
Not yet.
Not yet.
See it now?
No?
No, do you have a dual screen?
I do.
You want to make sure you want to email it to me? I may have the version 2.
Or just slide it onto your other screen.
Slide it up, screen 2.
You see it now?
No?
Hopefully the selection process isn't based solely on our ability to use Zoom. Peter, if you want to email it to me, I'll get it up there.
Will Gridley, do you have it? Can you pull it up for Pete?
Oh, I don't have the first few slides. I have the back end of it.
Okay.
Here, I'll
David,
To me?
when you hit the share screen button in the middle, what happens?
It says 1 and 2 on different screens.
So I think you want to select, those are your 2 screens. Are you selecting one of those 2 numbers?
Yes. You see it now?
No.
Not yet.
Here. Pete, did you email that to me?
I did.
Okay, I should be able to play it then. I got it. All right.
Okay, we good?
This is exciting.
We're zooming into the future.
I mean,
Yeah, I wish I had bought stock in Zoom. There we go.
all right. We are live, Peter.
Perfect. I'm sorry about that for a second. You know, it's very interesting to look at this project and think about some of the history and the experiences that we've all had in this terrific community. And I reflect back on my time growing up and going to Gill St. Bernard's up on Claremont Road, and memories of driving down Claremont every day with my mom and my brothers and stopping and getting candy at, I think it was Geralman's, and then the little store that was in the train station, sitting on the beautiful wall and admiring the wonderful town, and going to Mastro Shoes, and so many experiences like that. And it's funny because 30 years later, you know, when David reached out to me, we were talking about this project, I was sitting there eating an ice cream with my son on that wall. And by the way, that wall is beautiful. And I think that that's an example of when something's built right, it can last a very long time. And when you look at the train station building, you look at the wall in front of it, that's an example of something that's reminiscent of a decision that was made a long time ago in our community that still exists today in a way that has a lasting impact on a lot of people. And what I hope for and dream for is that my 10-year-old son one day can sit on that same wall with his child and talk about some of the impacts and experiences that he had growing up in a fantastic community like Bernardsville, and reflect on some of the decisions that all of us make as we go through this redevelopment process. And real estate's really one of the only businesses where what you do today is going to make an impact in 100 years from now. And we all have a responsibility to make sure that the decisions that we make are reflective of how much care and passion and energy we really put into these projects. So I think that this is really our chance to truly make a difference. And this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to create a lasting impact. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your commitment to this. You're here because you care, and you really care about the future, and you really care about what the difference is that you're going to make for the next generation. So I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to sit here in front of you and share with you some of my experiences and some of my thoughts on how we could all work together and truly make Bernardsville an exceptional place for the next generation, as the generations before us did. So our project team here is Robert A.M. Stern Architects. I'll introduce them later. The gentlemen are going to be on the phone and the Zoom call, and also have slides that they'll share. And they're truly a world-class group of professionals, and we really look forward to the opportunity of bringing their involvement into this project. And then David Wolf, who you know, is also a partner in this project. So next. So Advance was formed in 1979 by my father, and he had a dream very similar to mine of how do you reimagine real estate, and how do you operate in a market where there's many fluctuations. And when I think about Bernardsville and I think of the 30-year history that I have in my memory, there's been so many changes and so much growth and economic cycles. And really it's about the buildings are all still there, but the way they're utilized change. So I think when we look at the redevelopment process, I think that our core values really need to be that we're developing an enduring experience through exceptional design and really putting the pedestrian experience and the retail experience and the restaurant operator experience on the forefront, and really think about how we can create something that can be adapted as time goes on and can also be something that we're all very proud of. And at Advance, we've always believed in forging long-term relationships with all of the communities that we engage in. And we use our value and mission, which you can see here, as our driving force. And we've been designated redeveloper in over 10 communities in New Jersey for about 1,500 acres of property that have either been blighted or environmentally contaminated. But it all comes down to the same concept. How do you take something and reimagine it and convert it into something that successfully contributes to the ecosystem of the community by which you do business in? So we're very passionate about doing that. And I'd like to share with you two specific projects for myself that I really feel we've developed a high level of trust and respect with the leaders of the community and the tenants. And there's been a tremendous amount of retail tenants and individual tenants that occupy some of our apartment complexes and industrial tenants that truly believe in Advance's ability to work with them and carry out their own operational and lifestyle choices and functionality of their business inside some of these communities that we've been able to execute on. So next. So the first one I want to talk to you about is Hoboken. So when I first started working and was sent to Hoboken and we had acquired this site, I remember standing on this sidewalk, taking this picture and saying, what the heck are we thinking going to this section of town. How is this ever going to change? This was an old sort of industrial area. The viaduct was falling apart, yet we were going to make a very long-term commitment to build a building that formed an anchor in that area of the town. So working with the municipality and the county, which owned the viaduct, we developed a building which is named Harlow. And the way we thought through the building was very unique in the sense that we built a 400-car underground parking garage, which had never been done in New Jersey before, using a very specific type of construction that a lot of people were at that time thought we were crazy to do something like that. But in my mind, I said, there is no 20,000 square foot retail space in all of Hoboken, because everybody builds these parking garages that go up. So when you build a parking garage that goes up, you lose all the free space on the ground floor. And I kept saying to myself, at some point here, we're going to land a major retailer, and we need to pick that retailer, and that retailer needs to be somebody that shares our beliefs in transforming an area inside the community. So when we had the opportunity to talk to Trader Joe's in the beginning, they all say the same thing. Oh, this is a very ambitious project. It's going to take a long time. You know, I don't know how real it is. You know, talk to us when it gets farther along. So we very quickly forged ahead and immediately commenced construction and built a 140 unit building that has 25,000 square feet of retail and a 400 car underground parking garage. What I think is more important is when you looked at that picture in the beginning that I had taken, and now if you look at what that building looks like today, that corner's been transformed. But what makes me even happier as a developer, it's not just me. We were the catalyst that really invigorated that entire section of the town. And I'm so happy that Hoboken worked diligently and continued to pursue a master plan amendment and is really taking a wonderful approach to how do we entice other property owners to join in on this tremendous transformation. And with the viaduct that was reconstructed and some of the outdoor amenity spaces, with public parks, a lot of restaurants have opened up in this area. And another key thing is parking is always a problem. So the fact that our building had so much extra parking, it enabled people to come to this community, recognize a landmark type of building, park their car, walk around, and it completely changed the retail experience in an area that previously, A, didn't have retail, and B, had nowhere for anybody to park, because most buildings just park to the ratio that's required pursuant to the zoning. But at Advance, we always believe in how do we create the best experience for every single landowner in and around our property. And this is an example of, in my opinion, tremendously successful opportunity to create that transformation. Furthermore, as we were going through this process, we always believe in, buying up as much property around our existing projects. So the project you're looking at right now, which I love, is it's an old historic facade renovation in one area of the building. And then we're also tying into the industrial theme of that specific area. And this is another adjoining building on an old dilapidated industrial site. And we've received final site plan approval and be commencing construction on this building. And there's a substantial amount of community space in this building. And we're working with organizations that, from a charitable perspective, help people in the community. And those are some of our core beliefs and values. When we look at creating a project, we try and weave in all these components that really create a stronger community ecosystem. This is another building immediately adjacent to the viaduct that I had shown before. We're going through a bunch of various different concepts on this site right now, but I thought this was interesting, so I threw this in. And having experience doing retail, office, industrial, life science, health, wellness, and medical, when we look at a project, we want the market to be the driving force. So in this specific example, if it's not going to be residential, maybe it can be office, or maybe it can be medical. But we have deep relationships with a lot of users in a lot of different disciplines who we communicate with often. And we want to make sure that we have a project that adds viability to an area in the community. And that's really our thought process with a project like this. So the way we amenitize buildings and fit them out, we always believe in a best-in-class approach. All buildings that we have in every residential market typically command the highest rents. And that's not a coincidence. That's because we have extreme attention to detail, and we're passionate about understanding what the needs of the community are and working with everybody in the community and delivering a project that will endure for many generations to come. Next. So Harrison is another example of a project that when we initially looked at it, it was a blighted industrial site. There wasn't anything going on. And the community was really looking to transform itself and utilize this property that was owned by various different property owners. There was heavy environmental issues that existed. And it was something that a lot of developers that don't have the level of sophistication or the relationships with various different agencies to truly understand how to put very large scale transformative projects together just don't want to engage in. But we always believe, start something. If you work hard at it long enough, all your dreams will come true. So in 1998, my father bought this property and really believed in creating at first an infrastructure investment, and worked with the town diligently and various different mayors and councils and forming redevelopment agencies at a time when that wasn't the most popular thing, and worked with the Port Authority to build a new $256 million pass station, worked to procure the Red Bull Arena, which is a 30,000 square foot stadium, which is truly an unbelievable venue to bring your family. And we were responsible and tasked with building all the infrastructure, sewer, water, electric for all these facilities. And then we had procured Panasonic as a tenant in the back of the project, who built an innovation center, training people on how to use cameras. And the synergy with the Red Bull Arena really provided a fantastic venue to work on their products and screens and lenses. And the area has really transformed and emerged. And it makes me so proud every single time I go to a game or visit these projects to really see how people enjoy working and living in environments that you spend so much time creating. And it's so important that we all think about this process as something that we're all given the opportunity to put our fingerprint on this. And this is a purely collaborative process. I'm here to listen, to work with the community, to help the community. I really want to hear what it is everybody wants, what you want it to look like. And my goal is to be the conductor of the orchestra that kind of just puts it together and makes sure that I have the right instruments in the right place to really play that symphony. And that process is so much fun. And there's so much time you spend working with the developers, the elected officials, business owners, residents, landowners. And it's the most enjoyable component of my job is to work with everybody, figuring out how to put everyone's dream together, and then ultimately delivering the vision. And I look very much at Bernardsville as an opportunity like that. And that's the only way that I think we're all going to be very proud of the end product and what we ultimately create. So with that, I'd like the opportunity to introduce Graham Wyatt with Robert A.M. Stern, a friend we've known for a long time. I admire their work immensely. They're a world-renowned architecture and planning firm. And without any further words, Mr. Wyatt.
Thank you, Pete, and thank you, David, both of you.
Thank you.
So I'm Graham Wyatt, and I'm a partner with Robert A.M. Stern Architects. And what Pete didn't say, or I guess he hinted at the end, is we've been working together for almost a decade now and did original planning on that Harrison site. And it's so gratifying to see how that has built out and is really becoming a neighborhood. And we're working on the next couple of blocks together. People may know us as architects, but we are also very much planners who are focused on the design of communities and focusing on exactly the issues that Pete has just been talking about. And we also are a firm that works very much in collaborative teams. And so I am with you tonight, if only virtually, with my partner, Kevin Smith, who some of you may see on your screen, and also Senior Associate Will Gridley, who is running the screen. So thank you, Will, for that. So the three of us would be working with Pete and David in Bernardsville. What I wanted to do is to talk a little bit tonight about some projects that we felt together as a group were relevant to some of the issues that are facing all of us together in Bernardsville. And they all are united by this theme of creating neighborhoods and creating communities. And in this case, I would go even beyond that. It's not just creating, but it's reimagining and reviving. There's so much history and so much strength on that site at the center of Bernardsville, which people know and they remember it. And so many of the good bones are still there. So this is not a clean slate, but it's a careful process of sorting through what's there today and what was there in the past and what could be there in the future. And that's very much the method that we as a firm use as we look at projects like yours. Now let's go to the next. So a little bit about the site, and I won't dwell on this too much because we've spoken about it already, but it's an extremely interesting site with a lot of topography on it. And as I mentioned a moment ago, a lot of existing buildings that have real character to them. It fronts on what I've always thought of as the town square in Bernardsville, but of course, Alcott Square is really a triangle, which is one of the things that makes it so interesting. And it's where, in my mind, sort of all paths in Bernardsville lead to Alcott Square. And then the train station is right there. And how many towns are there where this village center is so proximate to the train station and such an interesting and fabulous train station? And then in addition to that, of course, it has the Bernards Inn, which is absolutely a diamond in our mind, and it needs to be buffed and polished, cleaned up. And then there is both a lot of parking that exists right now and a lot of opportunity for parking. The trick with a site like this is that it is big enough that it's the arrival experience and it's the edges that are really important. And it's not only that, it's the way in which you then process through the site. And this is just notional, and it's presumptuous for us at this point to say that we've got a particular design, but the site is of a size that it allows the pedestrian movement that Pete was talking about. And Quimby Lane itself is only part of that in the connection between the train station going up to Mill. Then there is the huge opportunities presented by the green space. It is, of course, a constraint because it is a floodway, it's a floodplain, and it's a floodway. And so clearly that is a place where a public park and publicly accessible outdoor green space makes a lot of sense. So in reimagining the village center, we looked at a few projects that we've worked on which bear certain relevance. And one of them is this idea of reimagining a village center. And so the town here is Darien, Connecticut. It also has a downtown which is very proximate to a train station. And we worked there with a developer who had the same kind of vision that Pete is talking about, to take the one piece of that Darien Main Street, which was really moribund, and reimagine it, but reimagine it in a way which is consistent with the history and the character of that town. It's a brief walk. And so what we looked at is a series of buildings that don't just line the street, although lining the street properly is very important. They also create a series of internal spaces within the site. And the site you're talking about is big enough to do that. And one of the spaces that it creates is a new town square. You have it in Olcott Square. Darien didn't have it at all. And so here it is, in working with the community, we created that square with retail around it and an inn. And think of this as being, maybe this is sort of Millbrook as it comes up to Olcott Square, but in this case, it's the main post road as it runs up to the new town square in Darien. And there's existing retail, which is mixed in with new retail. And the goal is, at the end of the day, no one can quite tell which is which. It all comes together seamlessly as a single community. And the sidewalks are narrow and the streets are actually fairly narrow, but in a way, that's a good thing because it slows people down and it gets people together and it adds activity. And so here you see images of that in Darien. And it's also a combination of retail at the ground floor, office above, and residential above, all of those uses, so that it's not just a 9 to 5 experience or even a 6 to 10 experiences around the clock. Next slide. So a second project, and I'll pass this over to my partner, Kevin Smith, to talk about, is an ongoing involvement we've had with a similar set of issues, mixing old with new in the northern part of Charleston, South Carolina. So Kevin, if you'll take this. You muted there, Kevin? We can't hear you.
Apparently, thank you for noticing that I was muted, and I just wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight. This is an interesting area, those of you who know Charleston, which is a whole series of parcels that most of which were owned and by the newspaper, the Post and Courier, and we've been lucky enough to look at a whole series of individual projects that have tried to use pieces of historic fabric to kind of recreate the history of this area. So here there's actually was the site of one of the earliest passenger train terminals in the United States in 1825. And this was there's remnants of the train sheds and that smokestack, and we're building things around it, creating intimate outdoor spaces and re-knitting the new residential and mixed use with the history of the place. In another area, we're actually moving and restoring some of the famous Charleston side piazza houses and making them into a community center for a new residential development, which is done in a way that looks like a series of historic buildings that have been put together. So it doesn't have a single sort of urban street wall. These will become beautiful one day. And we're going so far as to leave the little stucco facade of the what was a barber salon of a much beloved African-American man there, but it will be cleaned up. It won't look like this. And behind it is the first phase of this redevelopment, which has an office building on the main street and a new residential building behind. The office building is sort of the front, and then the back, the residential building is the more industrial behind, if you will, and all of it incorporates parking in a nice way and in a way that is still respectful of the history and leaves a little bit of the grit, which is very important to us, that this just doesn't get buffed to the point that the city's history and ceases to exist. Go to the next. And here is the residential building done to look like a series of industrial lofts. And next. And with that, Graham, you want to?
Yeah, so another project, and I'll try to move it along quickly. Another project which we felt is relevant is our work in College Park on the south side of Atlanta. It's the last stop on the MARTA train before you get to the airport. And so the train station is very important here. And we've come up with a plan which is to develop not only the existing downtown area and to fill in all the missing teeth, but to extend it and add retail with people living up above. Next slide. And so here is a view of that. Some of this is underway already. Some of it is planned in the future. Some of it is simply integrating existing buildings into the plan, but it does include two very different types of outdoor green spaces. One is Town Square, which is a market square, and the other is a big, much more naturalistic park, which is the sort of thing that one might imagine going down to the downhill side and downhill from Quimby Lane. Next slide. Another project, which is more urban, but is also related to this idea of creating a town square, is in the historic district of Arnhem in the Netherlands. So not even in the United States. And here in an area that had been badly damaged in the Second World War, we knitted together all the existing pieces with new to have a very pedestrian scale development that brings everyone in from every direction into a town square. It has some large retail facilities and parking, like the parking that Pete talked about, but up on the roof, it has courtyard areas which are usable by the residential tenants and are actually very attractive, like private gardens. And then here you can see there's a combination of new facades and existing facades, but once again, many people, now that all of this has been built, don't even know what was new and what was there previously. And we take that as a great sign of success. And here is showing how we tucked all the retail underneath, but put the courtyard up on the roof behind these facades. And the final project, which I'd like to show, which we're very proud of, is our 25-year engagement with the Walt Disney Company on the new town of Celebration in Florida. So this is all new, but it's a town that now has a population of nearly 20,000 people. And we were involved in the master planning, but also very much in the development of the main street and the main park downtown. Let's go to the next. And one of the things that we heard from the developer, the Walt Disney Company, is they said, well, you may want to build 2- and 3-story buildings because that looks right along a street, but no one's going to want to live up there. And we said, oh, no, they will. And in fact, not only have they decided that they will, but the street and the restaurants and the shops down below are so attractive that they actually get a premium for this rental space over other rental facilities that are a few blocks away. And the reason for it is that it has this kind of character. It has the restaurants and the shops and the activity that make it a really desirable place to be, where people can park their car and get out and walk. And the parking is there. It's tucked in behind. It's kind of like the parking that those of you who know it at Palmer Square in Princeton, the parking is there, but it's all hidden behind. And it makes the main street a place where pedestrians want to be. So those are all of them projects that have their own very specific character, but it seems to us that all of them have some kind of relevance to the issues that would be facing all of us together in Bernardsville. And the challenge here is to take the time to slowly tease this apart and to figure out what really is the ideal solution for this place and this town with its history, but also with its vision to the future and what that vision really most appropriately is. So we very much look forward to working with Pete and David and with all of you. It's so gratifying to see so many of you attending this council meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham and Peter. And again, you had more than 15 minutes, but we're equal now. So thank you.
That's right. I was trying to keep it moving along there.
No, it was fine. It's kind of hard to get all that into 15 minutes, but we figured we'd try. So at this point in the meeting, we will have if you see the agenda, we have an open session for any comments from the public. Again, if you wish to speak, you can go to the participant list and click on raise your hand. please limit your comments to 3 minutes and identify yourself and give your name and address so we can have it in the record. And we welcome any comments you may have. So if someone would like to raise their hand, let me just see. And Anthony and I will try and see if we have any. You see anything, Anthony? Oh, I do. I see David DePodwin. Okay, David, you want to unmute yourself and just name and address?
Yes. Hi, good evening. Dave DePodwin, DPODWIN, Old Colony Road, Bernardsville. Thank you both for the excellent presentations. I'm particularly struck by the second group who seems to strive for a bold vision tying the historical strengths of a given community, which, as you mentioned, Bernardsville is extremely strong and rich in architectural and just history in general in terms of the function of the railroad and people going to the country at the time, and how we marry that with the future with a bold, sustainable vision. So thank you both very much. And I do applaud both of you, particularly think there were some very fine points made by each, particularly the second group. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And, I think another, what I think is a really positive point is that all the people we heard today are all local people. And I just think that's really encouraging that people want to commit to their own area. I think that's just wonderful. And I appreciate your taking an interest in your own community. And for all of you that are here tonight and taking an interest. Do we have anybody else who would like to comment? Anthony, you seeing anybody?
No, I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand. I'm trying to look at all the pages.
I just scanned all 4 pages. I don't see any.
Yeah, I did as well.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing and thank everyone for the presenters for taking the time to be here. I know this is a little unusual, but our goal is to make sure that we keep the public involved as we go through this process. So, which is why we scheduled a special meeting. We want all our residents to know what's happening. It's been a long time and I know everyone's eager to see things move forward. So I really appreciate your coming tonight and putting your presentations together. Chris, and I saw Phil come in. Did I see that?
Mayor, maybe you could just let the public know what the next steps would be.
Well, I thought Joe did come in.
Okay, Joe. Okay, yeah, Joe can do that.
Yeah, the next steps is over the next, month or so. The due diligence will continue on behalf of the council, and the council hopefully in May or June's meeting, I would hope, would be in a position to start naming developers, to the 65 Morristown Road project and the Quimby Lane project. I mean, that'll give us sufficient time to continue to analyze and make a selection.
And what happens after we make a selection? Then you negotiate a
Yeah, once you designate the developer, that empowers them, right? That gives them certain powers to then, they can schedule. It's better to schedule a meeting with the DEP. We're talking about flood zones when you're the actual name developer. It's better to to go knock on someone's door, to try to negotiate a deal or to have those discussions, right? So once they do that, that opens up all those other avenues. We can then talk about, how does the borough dispose, transfer, sell, give, whatever adjective ultimately works with regards to the property that we control, which is, the post office and the parking lot and things of that nature. It allows grants, as Mr. Manillo pointed out, open space grants, applications, things for that. All those things start being able to be pushed down the road, where right now they're all in a holding pen. and then, you start really sitting with Chris and his team, and whoever the developer is to design the project that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that comes to the end of our program. So do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'm sorry, I just wanted
There's
to
some
make,
hands.
Yeah, whoa, wait, what happened? Anthony, what did you say?
I was just gonna say that there were some hands up. I don't know if we,
Oh. So I'll reopen the public session, okay, if we have people that want to talk. I see Janine.
Yes, I just had a question whether this is the last opportunity that the public has to make any comments, because we just heard this information, and is there any other forum for making comments or asking questions on the two presentations, or is this it?
So the selection will ultimately be done at a public hearing, right? So formal action has to be taken by the council. So
Okay.
there'll be another public meeting on the selection.
Okay.
But I would encourage anyone, and I apologize, Tom, as the business administrator, but if you have some questions or things of that nature, we gladly would like to collect those, right? Because that will only give us more information and provide us with public guidance as to the project. So if after tonight someone thinks about it or looks at a slide afterwards and wants to shoot a question or an email to the borough, that would be helpful, or a comment.
Yeah, and actually, if you look on the borough's website, there's a lot of information there. There's all the steps in the process. There's copies of the plans, the survey, these two proposals. I think also the Audi proposal, and we'll try and keep posting things as we have more information. But you can, send an email to myself and or Anthony as the clerk, and he'll circulate it to the council. If you have comments of anything that you're reading, of the material that's on the website, or anything you heard tonight, we'd be happy to hear comments from the public. So thank you, Janine.
Mayor?
Yeah, I
Mayor,
was just curious. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add that ultimately the fine details of the plan are going to be heard by the planning board as with any other application.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I see Harvey Goldberg.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I saw the detailed plan that Mr. Melillo presented, which seemed to be very detailed. And I did not see a detailed plan from Advance. Did they submit a detailed plan?
They did not. And that's part of the due diligence, is going back to our to developers to fine tune any pieces of the proposal that we need more information on. So that's what we'll be doing over the next month. Am I right?
Was there a deadline for the developers to submit a detailed plan?
No, we were not. The RFP really was to beat the bushes, see who is interested, see who is qualified, who can develop, and allow them to present concepts and thoughts and things of that nature, right? It wasn't designed really as a competition to hold someone to a fire and say, even the detailed plan that Mr. Manillo presented, I will tell you, if he is selected or was selected, that plan is not going to get built as presented tonight, right? I mean, it's good to have that detail, but we didn't really do a deep dive into the feasibility, the phasing of it, and things of that nature. So, as indicated at the beginning, we're going to have those additional 1 or 2 meetings with the developers, start talking about the nuts and bolts, right? One of the driving factors is timing, right? Like, who can perform and when you can perform, right? I think the borough has waited long enough. I mean, a decade ago when I sat on the council, we talked about this, right? So I think that's a factor also, right? So, but as the business administrator pointed out, the actual full details of the plan, like what the bedrooms look like, the cladding on the outside, all gets presented at a public hearing in front of the planning board at a final date.
Do you have anything from Advanced as far as when they will be presenting an actual rendition of a plan?
I would leave that to them at this point. We did not give them a hard deadline, but if one's not presented, I would suggest that, if one's not presented in the next couple of weeks, that would say something. That would be a factor to be considered.
Okay, so it's weeks and not months and months and months.
We're beyond months and months and months. We're going to start looking at this project in weeks. That's the goal that I was given.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Not a problem, sir. Have a good night.
I think it might help, Mayor, just to give some color. There was a plan submitted with the original RFP by Advance. This is a second RFP that came out. This is a new architecture firm that we're working with and are passionate about delivering the project to the town. But we're really trying to get a sense of what the town wants. So there has already been a plan that was submitted. We're working on a new plan. But ultimately, as what Peter told you, and I think what you heard from Mr. DeMarco, is that the plans that get submitted are typically routinely revised. It's really the community that drives what gets developed.
Right. Thank you, David. Harvey, did you give your address?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I live at 19 Skyline Drive, Warren.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I saw Kristen de Grand Prix.
Yes, thank you. We're at 7 Flintlock Court, and I appreciate the plans. They look great so far. I had one question for Advanced. I noted that you guys had an affiliation that you showed with Celebration. Did you guys have an ongoing affiliation with them, or was that just in the architectural phase of the downtown development and the initial planning?
Pete, would you like me to respond to that? It's Graham.
Yeah, you can address it.
Yeah, so this is Graham Wyatt again with Robert Stern Architects, and our involvement there was as the co-master planners. There was a very big development, so there were two firms who worked together on that, and we developed the master plan for the entire community. And we then, over a period of years, developed design guidelines, helped with the downtown zoning, which had to be established, and were ultimately the architects for 11 different buildings in Celebration. And we've remained in touch with them. We haven't built or planned anything there in the last few years, but we did have a long-standing relationship with them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I see Graham McMillan.
Thanks, Mrs. Mayor. How are you? Just a note, I think more for the council and in the process, and apologies if I've not been able to follow the details and sort of the projections and how to score the two bids. I do think a projection around economic value created beyond as developers and property owners, but to the town would be of value. Comparing the two proposals and what the economic value would be to Bernardsville, I think would be important. So just for the council to consider that as we look at the two proposals. In addition, I think the other factors, the environmental and social considerations, and really trying to organize it in a way that is more standardized and thoughtful to that as much as we can. So just a thought for the council to consider as we look at these proposals. But thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Would you just give your address, please?
Apologies, yes. 115 Washington Corner Road.
Thank you. And I see the Ridleys over there and have their hands up.
Yes. Good evening. I'm Althea Ridley and John, my husband, and we live at 70 Campbell Road, Bernardsville. I just had one question, and this may be addressed on your website. I haven't looked at it. So do you have an outline and a time date that we should respond with our input?
There was no really timeline. I will tell you that it's anticipated that the goal is that the latest that the decision will be made will be in the June timeframe. It could be with regards to 65 Morristown Road, since there was really only one applicant or prospective person or group that's currently under contract, that once that contract clears its due diligence, a decision could be made on that particular project in May. But I would gather and say the goal is really to get the council in a position to be able to make the best decision they can this May or June, like within the next 8 weeks.
The only comment that I have is, would there be any consideration to come up with an overall plan before any decisions are made on 65 Morristown Road?
An overall plan with regards to 65 Morristown Road or related to Quimby Lane?
No, yes, Quimby, the entire town. I realize that the Audi building has been sitting there and there's a great deal of interest from Mr. Calkin. But, you know, I think from an architectural standpoint, it's different than what I hear is possibly going to be the end result for Quimby Lane. And I'm sure it could work in, but I just, consistency.
There will definitely be consistency in design and things of that nature, but they're not going to be directly linked, because then, you know, we will be unfortunately hamstringing one with the other and delaying one with the other. I mean, they are sufficiently far enough apart that the town did do a re-examination or a master plan. There was a whole redevelopment plan process that was already created for both of these distinct areas that factor into green space, amenity space, walkability, and things of that nature. I mean, you can read both of those plans. They're fairly extensive and detailed, and a lot of work went into it.
And both of those plans have both pretty extensive design and architectural standards that are associated with them.
Correct. That whoever develops the property would be subject to.
And that would actually would apply to any redevelopment that occurs in the downtown corridor. So it was a project that took about 12 months, and there was a lot of attention paid to those details.
Yeah, you don't have to read the whole plan. I think, you know, you can scan through it and find, you know, what the basic standards are and how it's keeping with the architectural standards of the town. Also, there's a lot of information there on landscaping and making things more green and walkable. Those are all incorporated in the plan. So yeah, you don't have to read all the exact, 2 feet from here and 3 feet from there. You can really scan through it and get a good sense of what the underlying principles are.
And I'd just like to add too, is, as we were working council, I was working with our consultant topology. When we were developing the redevelopment plans themselves, we had an eye and a focus on consistency across both those plans. So in what we put out and what we've written down as the requirements for both these spaces, I think that's what Councilman McQueen was referring to. We had an eye towards consistency when we wrote those plans.
Yeah. But Althea, if you have other comments or questions, you can email me and I'll make sure that we pass them on. And thank you for coming. Okay. I see you up there.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Mayor Canos. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. I just wanted to ask of the advance team. We heard a lot about some large to mid-sized cities, and the closest to Bernardsville, I think, was the Darien plan. And I just wanted to ask about Advance's experience with working with smaller communities as opposed to Harrison or Hoboken or Charleston.
Pete, do you want to talk about that, or do you want to? Why don't you start?
Yeah, so we have a lot of experience interacting with a lot of different communities, but what I'm trying to show in the example of the projects was ways that had a transformative impact. And that transformative impact is one that was created through collaboration with the community. So, I mean, we have an office building down the street in Bedminster. We've done projects from Maine down to Florida. So every community's uniquely different, like you're talking about. And I think there's a tremendous amount of unique components in Bernardsville that we all need to flush out and figure out what in the town works, what doesn't work, and how do we programmatically address the solution to getting there. And that's really the process of developing a plan. And in order to really develop a plan, you have to have really thorough understanding of any and all environmental constraints, soil conditions, what kind of compaction circumstances you'll have to go through. There's a lot of complicated things that need to get analyzed before you can sit there and say, this is it. I mean, conceptually, you can get very far along. But my attitude is by the time I do all of that work, my goal is to sit and say, well, okay, this sounds and looks great. However, it can't quite happen that way because of X, Y, and Z, whether it's an environmental constraint, whether it's a sight line issue, whether it's a right-of-way issue, whatever the issues are. But it's my job to flush those out. And then when we have the conversation about working toward creating a plan, by the time it's done, it's something that I can 100% stand by and say, this will get built this way. And that's typically how we've done things. And I find it to be a lot more successful than coming up with a lot of different concepts.
Okay, so it seems like that can't happen before May or June. So it's going to be a long-term ongoing process to.
No, it doesn't have to be a long-term ongoing process. It has to be a process by which we all understand what's in the best interest of the community to meet their goals and objectives. Obviously, there's a lot of costs here. There's a lot of unknowns here. And those unknowns and costs need to be flushed out. And one of the key components here is how do we create a rateable inside the community that is one that we look at and are very proud of, and hopefully much higher than what's there today, much higher and better use of the property. And you know, it takes some time, but when you're used to doing this and have gone through it a bunch of times, you know, I can give you all the options very quickly, as long as I know all the facts.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Catherine Peachy.
Yes, hi. I'm Kathy Peachy at 70 Chilton Street. And to Carrie's point, yes, this is a small town, and I appreciate that Carrie brought that up. The train station here in Burnsville isn't the last before an airport. It's the second to last before a night yard. And I think that's relevant. And I'm a longtime townie here. Pete, you went to Gil St. Bernard in that building. I was married there at Stronghold. So my question that Graham brought up was the idea of social considerations of the redevelopment area. And so there are 5 or so neighborhoods that sit atop that slope. And I'm just interested in how the different redevelopment teams are taking into consideration those residential areas, the potential impact of the redevelopment on those 5 or so neighborhoods seated above the project. Thank you very much.
I think some of that we really tried to address. I think topology, and Chris could probably answer this, how he went into painstakingly making sure that what can be built in the Quimby Lane project actually does serve as a transition or a tie-in to, you know, that buffer between the state highway and the neighborhoods and water space and green space. So Chris, I don't know if you want to address how you factored in the surrounding areas.
Sure. I mean, there's a number of public amenities that are required under the redevelopment plan, some of which you saw tonight. But I know the main concern that folks often have in adjacent neighborhoods are traffic impacts that a project might have. And I'll just say for that the redevelopment plan does require any redeveloper implementing a project under it to prepare a traffic study to identify any impacts associated with that and to propose mitigating measures for any impacts that result in that. So I guess the answer to your question is partially things like that have been considered in the redevelopment plan, and partially like the next step of the project, a process as proposals become more specific and more detailed submissions are required. The borough would obligate redevelopers to submit additional documentation to respond to whatever concerns arise.
Chris, oh, sorry. Chris, so I just want to add from a municipal planning perspective, the redevelopment plan is in place to advance the goals of the municipal master plan. It's just called redevelopment because it's more challenging to make those things happen. But the tools of redevelopment are there in order to advance the master plan, which has principles really focused on strengthening the entire community and having one thing relate better to the other rather than just letting things fall by inertia.
Mayor, you're muted.
You're right. Sorry. I see David DePodwin's hand. Is it still up or did you put it up again?
No, it's still up.
Oh, okay. So you want
I'm
to
waiting patiently.
go. Okay. You've waited and it's your turn.
I do have an overarching concern in regard to providing our entire community with a wide opportunity to provide feedback in this process so that we don't put the cart before the horse and we have the ability to provide the vision that the community sees. So whichever developer and architect we choose can fully execute that vision. And I'd like to know what type of community feedback mechanism in the way of perhaps a portal on the town's site that all the feedback that people should be urged to provide and should and can provide ends up being communicated so that all can see. It's a communication, of course, is a two-way street. We need to see all the fine ideas and I'm sure some crazy ones, which are great in this process, and some very, firm and bold ideas. So how do we provide that communication tool to our entire community so that we can all see the feedback and our planners and architects and community leaders can see the feedback that is being provided?
With regards to that, I mean, a lot of that already took place, right, in the redevelopment plan. So a lot of the back and forth on how much amenity space, where it should be located, traffic flow, a lot of that went painstakingly for the past 18 months or even closer to 2 years. But it's
feedback, ongoing. My concern, it should be ongoing.
But at a certain point in time, you gotta just adopt a redevelopment plan, which we did, which sets the boundaries and the limits of size, scope, and bulk variances, puts design standards that were utilized for the whole center area, right? So it's not just the design standards of Quimby Lane, but those design standards were then implemented throughout the whole Olcott Square section. So the detail and the feedback now really is within that plan. It's really not to reopen the plan and reopen the thought process of what we want there. What the borough has decided by adopting that redevelopment plan is a mixed use development, with some residential components, with parking, with amenity space, public space, open space. And the feedback really is shading in the details, but not necessarily changing the envelope.
Well, so feedback going forward on architectural and historic aesthetics, how, for example, that's part and parcel of the planning board, is that correct?
Correct. The ultimate design standards and things of that nature, coloring of.
Besides meetings, since people can't necessarily attend a given meeting at a given time, what method of communication in terms of a public communication forum, portal, whatever you want to call it, can be provided going forward so that the dialogue continues and we continue to build on great ideas.
And Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but just because you can't attend a public meeting, which quite frankly, the pandemic, if it had any benefit, made it so that 67 people can sit in 67 different locations tonight and partake in this. We also always accept written or email comments before a meeting, correct, Tom? Right?
Absolutely.
And the documents are always available. And another good result of the pandemic is we now make those documents available electronically. So Anthony puts them up on the website, so you don't even have to make a trip to town hall anymore. You don't really even have to make an Oprah request. They're there. So people don't have to attend the meeting to do a comment, but when a formal application is ultimately presented to the planning board for a site plan approval, that application will be put up online, will be advertised, and you're free to comment electronically before the meeting as to your thoughts or desires.
Thank you.
Did we have any other questions, comments?
Mayor, I would just say that, this is the town, the borough administrator. I would just say, as far as I'm concerned, it's not just necessarily, giving me something in writing to pass along. If anybody wanted to set some time aside and, point out specific things that they think the policymakers should be aware of, I'm very happy to gather them together and make sure that they're understood.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for that offer.
Councilman O'Day, did you want to say something?
No, before we close, I just wanted to say that, I appreciate the time and the effort from the RFP respondents for tonight's meeting, as well as all the presentations and effort they put in for that tonight. I'm looking forward to further discussions that we're going to have about details that are going to be dictated and run by our redevelopment council, as well as our planners that we've contracted to do this. So I look forward to the next steps, and I hope that this has been helpful for the public as well.
Thank you. And yes, I will echo that. I think this is probably the most attendance we've had at a council meeting, and I think it's really encouraging that people came out tonight. Thank you all for the presentations and taking the time to be here. And we'll keep the public posted as we move along. And, we'll make sure we notify you when which meetings we're going to be approving a developer. And anybody else have anything they want to add? Council people or?
I think, Mayor, it's worth mentioning to everybody that this has been videoed, and so it's going to be archived on our website. And so if any of your neighbors or friends were unable to come tonight, they can still view all this. Or if you wanted to look at it again for, pick up any more details, this is going to be available.
Anthony, there's been made reference to several documents this evening that frankly have been deliberated over the last year, the master plan, redevelopment documents, et cetera, et cetera. Can we make them front and center on the website, Anthony? So that way, as folks are thinking about what's possibly to come, those documents are really easy to find and they haven't sort of fallen down the front page.
Sure. Sure, I can get links that go directly to those pages. Yes.
Thank you.
If you go down on the right side, there's they've been there all along. It's one link that says redevelopment documents, and then they all come up. And it's quite a collection because it's been starting in the survey, I believe, was 2018.
Yep.
The public presentation was 2019 of the survey results, and then it goes up from there. There's quite a number of documents. And, it's a lot to look through, but you don't have to read them word for word. You can get a sense of what's happened over the last 3 years by going through them.
It's probably worth mentioning and reminding everybody that the developers were working off of information that came from over 1,000 people who responded to the survey.
Yeah, it was over 1,100 actually.
Yeah, I have heard that people couldn't find actually the RFP or the responses to the RFP, even though they're on the website. So it would be good. And I don't know if we call it, you know, I don't know if redevelopment kind of hits home for some people. You know, so maybe we can rename it something that might resonate a little bit more with somebody that might just be searching the website for what they're looking for. But I also wanted to say, and I'm glad, Jeff, that you mentioned about, you know, that this is recorded, because, you know, as I'm looking through to see who is attending tonight, I didn't see a lot of the current business owners. A few of them, but not all. And I know that, you know, communication and change management in these big types of projects is super important. And these business owners that are currently there, I think really deserve that as well. So hopefully they, if they didn't know about it, hopefully they will learn about it and take a look at this video and play back. So, and thank you very much to all three groups that presented tonight. Appreciate it.
Anthony, along with the other documents, a link to this video then might make sense to have that.
Yeah, exactly. I could do a direct link to the YouTube page with this meeting on it as well as the other documents. Sure.
You might want to, because in that list of on the right-hand side of the web page, maybe move it to the top, because you have to kind of scroll down to find it.
Okay, you can do that.
So it's, you know, it's, you see it as soon as you open the page. And Kathleen waved her hand. She's a business owner, right? I saw her. Yeah, that's a good point, Gina. That, yeah, we had a few business owners here, but there's a lot more. So yeah, it's a great idea to, maybe we can send something to them to give them the link to the YouTube, so everyone can see this. All right. Anything else? Again, thank you to all of you, and we'll be in touch. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you again. Good night.